Welcome back to the Coruscant Nights podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Cooper. Joining me, as always, is my co-host and good friend Jack. And today we're discussing episode 7 of The Acolyte, the penultimate episode of season
Hmm.
1. Now, this will be a bit of an interesting discussion. This is an episode that we
Hmm.
kind of were expecting was going to happen, and obviously off the tease of last week, it was definitely one that we knew was going to happen. We didn't really know what was going to be shown. Well, for the most part, we didn't know. So yeah, this will be a good discussion. Before we
Hmm.
do get into it, just a quick reminder, we are on social media on Instagram and TikTok at Coruscant Nights. There will be a link down in the description. Also in the description, there will be a link to our Patreon. A special thank you to our patrons already, who are Ben, Keita, Caleb, Sebi, and John. We appreciate you all. We hope you guys are enjoying the after show. We will have another one out on Patreon by the time this video goes up. So if you want to go check it out, again, the link is in the description, or you can use the QR code on the screen.
Mhm.
All right. Episode 7. Jack, quick
Yep.
overview. What did you think?
Honestly, nothing that we already didn't really expect to happen. We all kind of predicted the exact pivotal moments of this episode from episode 3 and just kind of common knowledge. I think that this episode was what episode 3 should have been. I think it would have been good to have a mixture of both, but not focus solely on like one point of view for like because this episode was solely from the Jedi, and then the other one was solely from like the witches and stuff. I feel like it would have been a nice blend of both
Hmm.
in episode 3 and have a bit of because it was still a long episode 3, and this one was also one of the longer ones too. So I couldn't see why you couldn't just cut out a lot of the unnecessary parts of 3, which had a lot of it, and then just mix this into one nice kind of rounded episode. It wouldn't have taken away from the the mystery of it, because we all kind of knew that this was going to happen. It also wouldn't have been as it would lead to a better penultimate episode, because this one here felt like it was just one that needed to happen, but being the second last one of the season feels kind of weird and out of place. So I think this episode was definitely better than episode 3. It was probably better than quite a few of the other episodes in terms of just progressing from one point to the next as a whole. I think it made a lot more sense. The ending was still kind of, the usual type of ending, but it was the least like what's it called? Abrupt, I guess you would like to say,
Yeah,
compared
yeah,
to the
I
other ones.
agree.
So it felt like the most whole episode, but only because we had episode 3 beforehand, so we could fill in the gaps. If that didn't have episode 3, this episode on its own would be like, what's
Yeah,
happening? Why is it jumping around?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like this
yeah.
needs. This would be better. I don't see. This is interesting. I want to know your thoughts on this. I only just thought of this right as I'm speaking. Wouldn't it be better almost to watch episode 3, then go straight into this one, then go back to episode 4 and can finish it off?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that make more sense almost? Because then you get a full story, and then the mystery would be like, oh, well, I'm just predicting this kind of stuff, but it's kind of obvious anyway, and then get into the action, and it will flow nicely from present day to present day.
Well, it depends on what happens at the start of episode 8, because again, like we
Yeah,
were
true.
talking about before the podcast, it's like if episode 8 starts off with May going, "How dare you do this to
Yeah.
me?" to
Then it was
Sol
like a story time.
episode 6 ended off with saying, "You're going to listen to me and I'm going to tell you." It's kind of like, there wasn't really that story in there. So,
But then I just realized when you said that too, May already saw what happened with Sol, and like she was there. She saw Sol
yeah.
kill. Yeah. So I'm like, what does Sol have to tell May really? It's really Sol having to tell Osha. Like he's just gonna give
Yeah, good point. I don't know.
his opinion on what he thought and saying how he's sorry and everything. But I'm like, Osha literally has zero idea of what anything happened. May was kind of there for like half of it. And she, you know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah,
she saw them kill, and then now Sol's talking to May,
yeah.
but May already knows what happened. That's why May doesn't like Sol. But why didn't May tell Osha
Oh,
earlier?
no, you know what it was? It's because I'm pretty sure I might be wrong, but Sol mistook May for Osha when she ran in. So
Oh,
maybe
for
he thinks she doesn't know. Like
that
May
wouldn't make
doesn't
any
know.
sense, because then why was Osha always question? Why would Sol be like, oh, why is Osha always questioning what happened back then and everything?
I don't
If
know.
she was already there to what? That's what I'm saying. There's so many, like this show has
Yeah.
so many like weird connections and script writing errors that I
Yeah.
think there was just even if you objectively don't like the show like me, right? Why is there not like one easy narrative to like kind of follow with all these twists and turns? Like it's just so many unnecessary weird
Convoluted.
things. convoluted. Yeah, they're overcomplicating such a
Yep.
simple premise, and it's quite funny when you look at it like that. But anyway, that's my quick thoughts of the episode.
Yeah. Okay. I'll chime in just very quickly. I think this might be the first episode where I think more negatively of an episode than you. I didn't despise this episode by any means, but I think it was probably just above episode three, the weakest of them all. And like I said, when we finished the Brendok arc in episode three, went into episode four, the first thing I said was, thank God we're out of Brendok because I hated being there. And this episode, we're back there. I thought it was a bit more engaging because we're with the
Mm,
Jedi and that's who we care about. But
mm,
still, the environment's really bland and boring to look at. The whole mission. Just a quick point on the mission.
mm,
Torben, this was like right at the start.
mm.
Torben was like, we've been here for 7 weeks. Like, what
Yeah,
are we
like what?
after? We would have found something. It's like, why the hell would the Jedi not tell Torben what they're doing there?
For 7 weeks.
Why did they
Yeah.
not tell them why they're there? That's just,
Mm.
why did it take them 7 weeks to tell him?
Because
That's,
Cooper, you're forgetting they want to make the Jedi look bad.
no, I know they want to, but that just
Even
seems
that.
like stupid script writing.
It is classic, yeah, classic.
Yeah, I didn't really like this episode. I think it was a better episode three, but like I said episode three, but better, and that's not saying much. So that's really where my
Well,
thoughts lie.
yeah, but I think I don't know. Like you obviously clearly like you liked episode 4 and you liked
Yeah,
episode what was last week's
six.
6.
Yep.
I thought they were just both really poor, weak, like plot development wise, and even like if you think about episode 4, aside from the very last shot that teased for the next one, it was just them walking and stopping to talk about the same conversation, and then keep walking, stop, talk.
I know, I
Like
know, I know.
it made no sense. It was the most useless. Like at least this one, even though we already knew what was going to happen, at least it like became like it gave us something for the plot.
Mm,
You might not have to like it, but at least it finished that kind of story arc with the Jedi and what happened on Brendok. You know what I mean? Like obviously it needed to happen. Needed to happen in episode
mm,
3 probably more than anything.
mm.
But I think it still did a better job as a pure episode on its own compared to the last two. Like last one was okay, after a week of thinking, like pondering on I understand the weird scenes like with Kamira and Osha, but it's trying to do the twisting of the dark side in a more visually physical, seductive way rather than like the mental aspect that we get.
Hmm.
Like even with Kamira having that weird bath, I think they were trying to do it as a more symbolic thing, like he's physically trying to seduce her too to the dark side rather than
Yep.
just being nice kind of thing at the same time. But anyway, even like those two, I think 4, 6, and this one's 7 are all pretty much on the same wavelength for me. I think that they're all kind of just mid. Like they're not horrible, but they're just very average. And I think 3 just needs to get out of here. 3 is honestly the worst piece of anything ever. Like
Yeah.
not just because of the weird chanting, but just I don't understand. But like, oh, quick little side note, just before because I'll probably end up forgetting it. They mentioned the Night Sisters.
Yeah, yeah.
Who
There are a
was that?
few there are a few references in this episode
Yeah.
actually.
How cool was the
Um,
Night Sister? What are they doing at this time, I wonder?
oh, they've probably been around. Well, again, they originated from Perugia, so they're
Hmm.
probably
Still there?
well, they probably still are there, but like they've also probably migrated over to this galaxy, and people
Hmm.
know about the Jedi know about the Jedi will know all about the different
Hmm.
threats and Force
True.
users and stuff.
Also, how funny you mentioned, oh, you don't like being on Brendok? Me with C-Toss from Ahsoka.
Yeah, that's so true.
See,
That's
not
so true.
again.
I like
Wah.
CTOS because the imagery was really nice. Like it
I
was
mean,
it was
yeah,
it was dark
yeah,
and the red trees. It just it was some sort of spooky vibe. But we're
yeah,
not
true.
talking about
Yeah,
CTOS here.
Ahsoka.
Other references that I don't know if
Hmm.
you caught on to. They
Yep,
mentioned the Great Hyperspace Disaster from the
they
book,
did
which was
from
really cool.
Light of the Jedi. Yep.
That's the
Mm.
first time, besides Vanestra, I've really felt
Minister.
like, oh, this is really following a story that we're familiar with. So
Mm.
that was fantastic. And I guess the idea of, we'll get into Divergence in a minute, but
Yeah, yeah.
the idea that maybe this event caused so much death and destruction, but also that it
Also breathe
created,
life.
yeah, it brought life. It created the potential for new life. So I really like that idea, even though it was
Yep.
such a
Same.
tragic incident.
Mm.
Yeah, I was very excited about that.
Yep.
Also, I know in episode three we spoke about some of the images on the screens,
Mm.
like the Loth
Mm.
Cat. That was a good one. We had the
Yep.
Wampa.
Wampa. Yep.
We had the
And the
Loth Cat
Gonk.
again, and the Gunk Droid. And I'm
Gonk.
pretty sure I don't know how many planets have rings, but there was definitely a planet with rings. It
Yeah.
might have been. Actually, I was going to say it might have been Geonosis, but now that I think about it, it was probably the planet that sits above Brendok, the one that
Mm,
Indara looked at,
yeah.
and where the inspiration of the logo is with the red moon and the blue moon. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, those are the references that I caught onto,
Pretty
which
cool.
was got the bunta tree again, but
The Bunta tree. Yep.
yeah. Do you want to talk about the lightsaber fight?
Yeah, yeah. Might as well. It was probably one of the highlights of this episode. So this is where it gets interesting. I was at first like, whoa, how cool's Torben's blocking and deflecting of the arrows. I thought that was done like a pretty cool kind of, it was very fast, very flashy, but also effective. And I was like, "Hmm, chef's kiss." At first I was a bit not happy with the Wookiees Kalnaka's movement, but then I realized I was like, well, he is meant to be a bigger like physical being, so he's gonna move slower. But I didn't I don't know, like the fight was it had good moments. Like I really liked how they made an emphasis on Kalnaka grabbing Torben against the wall and that visual imagery. However, he wouldn't have gotten those exact scars when he only just got face pushed because we didn't see him claw or anything. It was
I
just
I think he got knocked away
yeah.
before that. Like he ended up
Well,
on the ground beforehand, so I think he got
okay.
knocked.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like this fight had a lot of weird, kind of jumpy aspects to it. Like even when Sol went, he went and knocked Kanaka's lightsaber out of his hand
Yeah.
and then did like some fisticuffs again. Like what is with Sol and kind of like hand to hand combat kind of thing?
Yeah, I
Like
don't know.
I don't know. I feel like there's always like good moments from there was good moments from this fight, but then there's also it felt very choppy at the same time. Like it
Fair.
didn't feel that smooth as like we saw in episode 5, I think. But overall, I liked the musical score. I liked the intensity of it. Didn't what happened with you can't tell me that her getting Indara getting the Kalnaka out of the mind control just killed all those witches.
I don't know. That was very much
I was
glossed
like,
over, wasn't it?
it was also very just kind of not like it was climactic, but it was
No, it was
anticlimactic.
anticlimactic. I
They all
agree.
just went out of like the thing. They all just like kind of collapsed, and I was like, okay, that happened, I
So
guess.
maybe Indara didn't kill them, and she just put
Slept
them
him.
in a because we saw Kylo Ren do it to Rey in The Force Awakens. Maybe it was something similar, knocked him unconscious.
Could have been,
Um,
yeah, that's
but
true.
yeah, to penetrate someone's mind and then penetrate the minds of the people
Minds
who are
of
mind
others.
controlling the minds you're
Yeah.
forced. It's just like, whoa, hang on,
Mm.
that's pretty crazy. So.
What did you think of the fight?
I really liked it.
Mm.
Not that this really matters, but I like this sort of stuff. It was the first time we've seen a green versus blue versus yellow
Hmm.
lightsaber
True,
fight.
true.
Um, so I really like that. I like the colors of the lightsabers.
Mhm.
I'm a child at heart, you know.
Mm.
Um, I liked it. I know it's gonna sound weird when I first say it, but you got to let me explain.
Yep.
Kelnaka reminded me of Balin in this fight because Balin's
I know what you're gonna
fighting
say.
style was very emphasized on strong, heavy
Yeah.
strikes. And what
Mm.
it looked like, obviously, Wookiees are very strong, and he moved a bit different to what Balin does. But every time he was hitting Sol's lightsaber or Torben's lightsaber, it looked like they were getting hit with a slab of concrete. They
True.
looked strong. So I
Mm.
appreciate that they went for this style of fighting. Last week it was, oh, not last week, episode 5, it was about Kamir and his really quick style, frantic, aggressive, effortless. This one
Mm.
felt like it was more intentional, purposeful, and yeah, strong. So
Yep. Yep.
I liked the duality that we had between the two fights. I hope this isn't the last lightsaber fight we get of the season. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I do agree it was a bit choppy at times.
Mm.
But yeah, I got no complaints. Even seeing Torben go vroom, 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 vroom
Mm.
was really cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was good. It was
Um,
good.
I agree. I think that's probably where that makes perfect sense because I loved Balin's heavy strokes and strikes. However, I'm not a fan of the slow movements. I like the fast, like as you've said, frantic kind of fight scenes a bit more. Like obviously I'm a prequel lover, right?
Mm,
So when you
mm.
have I I it would make sense for the Wookiee to fight with stronger kind of strikes and hits and be a bit slower moving wise. However, if I saw him like kind of ducking and going crazy, kind of like that, I would have probably preferred that still because I like that style of fighting better than kind of like
Yeah, I get that. But
one
you
big
also got
hit.
to think that his
Logic,
mind's
yeah.
been invaded, so the witches are probably telling him to fight like this. It's probably not the
Yeah,
way he normally fights. So
true. Also, what would have the witches have put in his head? Because as we know about Torben's was him trying to get back home. What was Kalnaka's? You don't actually like these people. Fight them.
and also another point. on Kofa in episode 4, we saw the witch symbols on his hut.
Yeah,
So
maybe he's still
maybe the witches are still like,
in his head a little bit. Well,
maybe they
were in his
didn't
head.
die. Maybe that'll be a
Yeah.
reveal in episode 8. The witches didn't die and they're still controlling Kalnaka.
And then
But obviously he's dead now, so
are we going to see how he died, or are you just going to assume? I don't think anymore, but you're probably just going to assume that he just got slashed. But like, he
Akaimi,
wouldn't.
Alchemy.
Maybe he just got jump scared, like jump surprise kind of thing. That's why
Yeah,
I'm like, he
possibly.
would have put up a good fight. I would have thought if he's a
Well,
Wookiee physical strength wise.
so again, it depends. We don't really know. He doesn't wear his Jedi robes, so I'm assuming he left the Jedi Order,
Yeah.
because of what happened. Much like what Torben did, he took
Mm,
the vow. I forgot what it was called.
mm.
And kind of Indara. I don't know what happened to Indara, but I feel like she kind of
He was just
isolated herself
chilling.
from the Jedi.
Yeah.
And then Sol was the only one who really kind of stayed, but obviously tried to get over it, but never
Yeah.
really did. So
True.
yeah, it'll
Yep.
be interesting.
Mm,
Um, so I'll talk about the Virgins quickly. This is what
mm,
was kind of described as how May and okay, first of all, before I begin it, I feel like I was partially correct in episode 1. In our first podcast about the Acolyte, I said that there was something wasn't right about the twins. I didn't
mm.
think that they were this. I thought they were the same person, which they
Yeah.
are,
Yep.
but I thought there was like some force projection happening.
Dyad
Not
thing
not that extreme, but definitely it seems like there was one child that's been force
split.
projected into two, which is what
Yeah.
the description really was.
Mm,
Um, the vergence, the possibility to create life because of like stashes of force or whatever it was
mm.
alluding to. I don't really, I'm kind of at the point where I don't care about it now. And it's kind of like it exists. I don't really care because we're not going to see it again in Star Wars. I'm not one of those camps that goes, oh, it ruined Anakin's death. Sorry, not Anakin, Anakin's
Mm.
birth. I'm like, "Ugh," like that doesn't bother me. But in like this sense, I'm kind of thinking okay, it's interesting. It's good that it's got a name, but I really don't care about it that much.
I just don't see why it wasn't like I know obviously because this is made after, but like now that you've implemented something like this, it's one of those things where it's like, how does every Sith Lord not know one single thing about this? You know what I mean? Like it kind of it does make it a bit obsolete in terms of not that like it ruins what we've already watched, but when you subconsciously watch this now, if you watch this and understand what that is, you're like, oh, he actually could prevent and create life and prevent life and from people from dying if you've got this
Yeah.
disability or this kind of thing that you have.
Hmm.
So I'm like, well, that's kind of lame. Like it's like, well, you know what I mean? And even like with the hyperspace tracking, if that was way before too. And then you just look at all the others like, oh, why couldn't they just implement this now? Why they're not figuring out how to make this? Or, you know,
Yeah.
it's all that kind of stuff again, which is why I'm like, why even have this? Like, brings it back to the start. Why have two kind of beings created from the Force, or
Yeah.
one being technically now and split? And yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. Why do this? Why couldn't you
Well,
just have two Force beings who are just not like who just a dyad in the Force or something? You know, even why have to make it so impactful and so much more powerful? And this is where I'm going to link to the midichlorians too. They said that they're very high in it too. And I
yeah.
was like, people are going to hate this. And I didn't like it either. I'm like, but they're not even real beings. They're just
Yeah.
force people. Like that doesn't count, surely.
My stance on midichlorians, I don't, I recognize them, but I don't think that that is the telltale sign that someone can be a Jedi. I think I
But it's
like that
power.
it is power, but
Mm.
I like the description that Ahsoka gave that it's about training and concentration and um commitment, and that's what I feel like being a Jedi shouldn't be based on your midichlorian count. Obviously, it's
No,
important
but
to
it's
have a high
potential.
midichlorian count,
Yeah.
but I feel like you need to have that commitment to be
Of
a Jedi.
course. But I think the midichlorians is more like potential.
Oh,
It's like
okay.
their ceiling. Like they've got such a high ceiling that they can get to that kind of, you know what I
Mm,
mean? When I saw Anakin's be like almost as high as Master Yoda's, they're like, this guy has potential to be
right.
like really strong in the force, meaning in thus being a strong Jedi, or as they probably realize, a strong Sith if it goes into the wrong hands.
Yep.
So I think it's more like, don't know how like a bit like obviously makes sense for them to be strong if they're beings created by the Force. They're basically just the Force. Like, are they even like real? Like, are they even like a physical? Like, if they
Yeah.
die, Like if they get a lightsaber through the chest, are they just going to turn to mist or whatever that witchy
Yeah,
thing happened with
yeah.
Mother Coral and them? I don't know.
I describe it as the
You literally, yep.
Morbius train
Morbius transformation.
teleportation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I have a theory about the witches. I don't think it's going to get answered. I don't think it's going
No,
to,
probably
get
nothing will.
anything. So you did mention that, like, oh, why did they even create two beings? I have
Mm.
a feeling, obviously, their motto and even the end credit song, which was god
Oh,
awful, by the way, that does
oh,
not
I was
belong in Star
dying.
Wars.
I was
But
dying.
it emphasizes the power of two, and the witches live by this power of two motto. And I feel like maybe they created one of Mayor Osha, and the coven wasn't happy about that, and so they're like, okay, let's use the thread, let's create a new being or something along those lines. And then they created two. Again, that's just a theory. I don't know.
Oh,
It
yeah.
aligns with what happened, but I don't even know.
Can you just realize, like, even hearing you say this stuff and what we're talking about, if someone comes into our podcast and just comes into this moment, what the hell are we talking about? Like,
Yeah.
how was this even real? You wouldn't guess this is Star Wars. Like, the
Yeah.
thread, two beings split in two, witches. Like, what? It just doesn't feel like a classic Star Wars project. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
it's definitely not a classic. It's one of the Star Wars projects of all time. That's what I'll
oh,
say.
yeah. Yeah,
It's
it's one of, yep.
one of it's a Star Wars show of all time.
It is a show and it is Star Wars.
It's a show that happened.
Yeah, it's happened, and whether it's good or not is up for your interpretation.
That's it. Yeah. I find it interesting. I'll make one last point and then I'll hand it over to you if you have
Yeah.
anything else to mention. The same guy or director who did this episode, I forgot what his name was, Koganawa. He did episode 3 as well. So, I guess
Yikers.
they gave him or them all of these Brendok
Well,
stuff.
would make sense. You want to keep consistency with
You
how
do.
you do it.
You do.
Probably well, obviously they would have filmed all this with multiple cameras. So
Mm,
like they filmed the perspective that we saw with even with the tree, the bunta tree, you can kind of tell like a camera would have been there and then camera would have also been behind them trying to get that same scene
mm,
at the same time instead of acting it out twice kind of thing, you know?
mm, yeah.
So yeah, probably makes sense. Or once again, even with what everyone's been saying, like about the run times and even the writers saying that they have to cut certain things to make it into two. Like, was this meant to be one episode, kind of as a whole? And
Possibly.
then in post production, like, we'll save this mystery to the end because we're like calling the show a mystery,
Yeah.
Jedi murder kind of thing, you know? So I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah, it could
Possibly.
be.
Do you have anything else you want to add?
Uh, Uh, um, oh, just funny enough. How funny was it to you when you watched the start of this episode? Why do they look like construction workers reading the topography of like the landscape? They look like someone like put them in a
Oh,
high
with the
vis.
metal
Yeah,
detectors.
put them in a high vis and they're a tradie, mate. They're a tradie.
That's so
Like
true. That was pretty
I,
funny.
I was watching them like, yeah, this is Star Wars, collecting grass, reading the landscape. Yep, this is Star Wars.
Collecting
This,
grass.
this is what I think of when I think of Star Wars.
Yep.
Yeah, metal detectors.
That was so funny.
Damn, man.
That was
So
so
weird.
funny. I'll mention one last thing. I know I said that before,
Yeah.
but I'll go on thing.
Yeah.
The speeder bikes looked a bit weird. They looked very like original trilogy inspired from
Yeah.
Endor. It kind of gave me
Yeah.
that vibe. It wasn't very well
The
shot, but
CGI wasn't very good.
no, it wasn't. And there was one where I saw Soul kind of leaning and the bike didn't move. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you can tell that he's on
Yeah,
a
but even
prop
when he
and there's a
pulled
green
up,
screen behind him.
yeah, when he pulled up, it was just like me dragging a PNG image like across like it literally
Yeah,
I was like
yeah, I remember.
when he pulled up when they went their separate ways, I'm like, well, this $180 million you say.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
Where did that go to?
I don't know. I don't know.
It just
This choice, if you have a choice, don't watch it. It's not
yeah,
good unless you want your
yeah.
questions answered. But even then, you can probably predict what's going to happen. So
I mean, watch the fight scene. That's what you need to know from this. Like,
yeah.
just to see how, yeah, yeah. You don't need to see anything else about the witches. It doesn't give them any more depth. It doesn't give them any more anything. It's just,
Hmm.
I don't know. I really hope next week somehow absolutely shocks us all, like episode 5, and just is a good banger finale. So you got two redeemable episodes that are really like objectively good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, look, the only trailer shot that I can think of that we still haven't seen is the one that you and I commented on
Which one?
in the Acolyte preview, the one where Soul is being chased by the Jedi ship in the asteroid field,
Oh,
and
and
then
he's
like Soul hits it and then like goes like that.
goes through.
That's gonna
So
be hype. That's gonna be a hype moment.
yeah, but now that I think of it, I actually forgot about that scene. But I do remember what you're talking about because I remember getting excited for it.
Yeah,
Why is that happening?
he's
Like
running
what?
away.
But like why? Because
Oh,
okay. Look, I'm not going to question something that would have a horrible answer to it that will ruin his not ruin, but like be a weird character decision or motive
yeah.
for the thing. There's no point even discussing it. Okay, but yeah, it'd be cool to look at for
We
sure.
gotta wait another week.
There must be okay. Here's my final take.
Yep.
I do not like the Acolyte. It's pretty obvious. However, if there's a post-credit scene or a reveal at the end of the whole finale of Plagueis or Tenebris or anything, and that leads into a season two, I want season two to happen just so I can see them ruin their characters or make it really cool. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I want it to happen just for that. Like, if I don't see them though, do not make it season two. I refuse to watch it. Do not. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch another season of just weird characters that I'm not going to care about in the future.
Okay. We might chat about this more on the after
Yeah.
show if you want to go check it out. But I want one prediction from you. One character who is not making it out of the final. Who is dying?
Okay. This is going to sound like a bit like cheating. If okay, if there's not going to be a season two and they haven't planned for all this stuff, Kamir's going to die because he
Mhm.
kind of has to. But if he survives at the end of this, then it's kind of clear that they're going to have to do a season two because you can't just have a Sith or an evil villain walking around pretty close to the prequel era. So kind of obvious if he does die, or if not, kind of thing. But one that I reckon will die that might be a bit more of a surprise will be Soul.
Yep, I agree.
I think he might do a sacrificing
Yep,
play, redemption kind of thing for his action, maybe protecting Ocean, and Ocean becomes a Jedi again or something and
yep, I agree.
saves the day after he makes a sacrifice against Kamir. Osha finishes a job or something, and then
I
yeah,
I think he's
or
more
it's like a
likely.
bit
Yeah, I think he's more likely to make a sacrifice for May
true. And then Osha's
because
like, "Wow,
he's regretted not being able to save both of them since it
yeah,
happened.
true."
So yeah,
And or not. This is a theory. Maybe I'll save this for
the after show.
Uh, well, I was gonna say that, but then I was like, oh, but then also I was gonna say, oh, I kind of want to talk about it next week because if it does happen, but if I don't say it at all and it happens, I'm gonna be annoyed that I didn't say it. Let me just. It was just a quick thing.
Okay.
I've already talked to you about this. Are they gonna do like the switcheroo where it's like May ends up becoming good after this conversation, all this kind of stuff, maybe, and then Osha becomes like the villain? Because like,
Mm.
whoa, switcheroo. They
Well,
were not, who
so
knew that?
I was pretty convinced that that was the direction this episode was going when I heard the leaked title of
It's not.
Accept Truth
It's not
or
anymore, is
Truth
it?
Accept or whatever it
Is it
was.
not Doom anymore?
I hope it still is. Watch it come out and be
Because
like, um,
forgiveness.
honesty. Yeah,
Yeah,
forgiveness.
forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Yeah.
If it's forgiveness, everyone has to subscribe. I don't care who's what. Every single person has to. Forgiveness. Oh no, that'll be
That would
so
be the
bad.
worst final title
Possible.
ever.
Oh, forgiveness. Yeah, because they're gonna all forgive him and he's gonna
Yep.
sacrifice. Oh no. It could be
Alrighty.
sacrifice too, actually.
Yeah, could be sacrifice.
Those are two ones. Yeah. Mm.
Forgiveness slash sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
All right,
gosh.
we're
Please
calling
no.
it. That's Coruscant Night's prediction.
Please no.
Yeah. All right, that'll do us for this week. Thanks for watching, and yeah, we'll see you for episode 8, the finale of The Acolyte, next week.
Catches it.
See you guys.